Hey everyone, this is Friedel Hakoreja Raven, and I'm here with my recap and review of the Alienist season number 2, which is titled Angel of Darkness, episode number 7, titled The Last Exit to Brooklyn. So, this episode opened with Burns and Boyle making their way to Cyrus's pub, and this is where they end up threatening one of Gugunox's closest accomplices, I guess. He's not basically his partner because Gugunox doesn't treat his people right. But anyway, Burns is threatening that person because he needs to get closer to Gugunox. And while that's happening, Sara and John are in Brooklyn and they are waiting for Sergeant Kelly so that they can talk about Libby. And this is also where these two have a conversation about how Sara is uncomfortable with how Burns is handling the situation. And John is like, you know what, Sara? I have a feeling that you also enjoy this because you provoke people. You even provoked me. So yeah, that's just something that you do. But before Sarah can talk further to John about this, Sergeant Kelly comes in, and Sergeant Kelly tells us that he doesn't necessarily think that Libby would be able to kill a whole lot of people and kidnap babies and murder babies, especially because she came from a well-off family and she was a nice girl when she was growing up, and all of that stuff. And Sarah is like, maybe Libby wasn't like that before, but something might have happened that ended up changing her. So can we look through her records? And Sergeant Kelly is like, yeah, have at it. And then we cut to Burns, and Burns ends up trying to make a deal with Gugunox's man, and he is like, you know what? If you guys end up bringing the Vanderbilt baby to me safely, I will give you a whole lot of money. So what do you say? And the Gugunox's man is like, you know what? I'll think about it. I'll get back to you. And then we shift to Sarah and John, and this is where Sergeant Kelly gives them a file, and it turns out that Libby was found guilty because she ended up trying to murder her own mother, and I guess she was put into asylum for 2 years. And yeah, there's something there, so they need to go and talk to Libby's mom. Now, while all of that is happening, Karen ended up taking Chrysler to this weird nightclub where queer people are there and a whole lot of stuff is happening. And this is something that Laszlo hasn't experienced before. Basically, why Karen wanted him to be there is because she wanted him to meet this new character by the name of Alice. Turns out that one of the people that Alice serviced or something like that was abandoned as a child, and Alice ended up nursing him or something. It was weird. It linked to what Libby's up to and why Gugunox sucks on her chest and all of that stuff. And yeah, Chrysler is quite fascinated with everything that's going on. And then we cut to Libby feeding the baby, and Gugunox is there, and he's watching Libby feeding the baby, and he tells Libby, and he's kind of jealous, and he also tells Libby not to go outside because the police is looking for her. And the man that works for Gugunox ends up coming up to Gugunox, and he tells Gugunox, oh, this name Gugunox, I can't. Anyway, Gugunox, yeah. The man tells Gugunox that Burns came up to him and he offered money for the baby, and Gugunox takes all of the money from the man, and he ends up punching the man in his face. And I'm like, Gugunox, why would you do that? So Karen and Chrysler are talking in Chrysler's office, and Chrysler is like, I appreciate you taking me to that nightclub because even though I have read a whole lot about other people in psychological books, it's one thing to look at the moon through a telescope, and it's another thing to actually feel the moon. So he's very appreciative of Karen doing this, and he's like, Karen, have you been to that club before? And Karen is like, yeah, I'm open to new experiences and all of that stuff. But before Chrysler can say something, the phone rings, and it's Sara, and Sara wants Chrysler to come meet her. So everyone is outside the apartment building where Libby's mother lives. So Burns is there, John's there, Sarah's there, and they're waiting for Chrysler. And yeah, John wants to talk to Sara because they haven't really had a conversation after they hooked up. But because it's Sara, Sara has some issues when it comes to expressing herself. So Chrysler comes here, and the four of them make their way to Libby's mom. Her name is Mallory Hunter, And Mallory's like, yeah, come in and ask me questions. So she shows Sara a box of some stuff that belonged to Libby, and her mom is like, I haven't met Libby in years. I'm not really sure what she's up to. However, I have been reading the newspapers, so I know what Libby has done, but she hasn't made contact with me. This is where the entire conversation turns to why Libby wanted to hurt her own mother, and it's revealed that Libby gave birth to a baby girl, and that Mallory took the baby girl away. I actually enjoyed this entire scene because I have been wanting to see Chrysler do more in this entire investigation, and seeing him interrogate Mallory like that was very impressive. So it turns out that Libby didn't actually try to murder her own mother. Mallory ended up framing Libby because when she was able to prove that Libby was crazy, that's when the society was able to take Libby's child away from Libby. It was a mess. It wasn't good. And yeah, Mallory isn't a good mother. So Gugunox comes back to Libby and he tells Libby that he knows how they can exit New York and they can go to Brooklyn. However, what they have to do is they have to take the baby back to the Vanderbilt and get the cash reward. And Libby is like, no, you're not taking my son. And she tries to fight Gugunox, but Gugunox is able to push her away and he takes the child with him. And while all of that's happening, we see that Sara and Chrysler are in Chrysler's office, and the twins come in and they have the memory boxes with them, and Chrysler wants to reanalyze the memory boxes. And this is where they figure out that the first memory box that Libby made, it's actually of her own daughter, Claire, and Claire's alive. So yeah, Libby doesn't know where Claire is, but they know that she wants her back. Burns and Gugunox's men are waiting for Gugunox to appear, but he doesn't come, so Burns isn't happy about that, so he orders his police officials to start hurting the man, and yeah, Gugunox is hiding and he's watching Burns beat up his man, and I'm like, ooh, Gugunox, that's not good. Because Burns' initial plan didn't work, he goes to Hearst and he's like, you know what, Hearst, I have another plan and we are going to use Claire as bait. And Hearst is like, Vanderbilt isn't going to like that. He might even hate us for this, but you know what? Let's do this. Let's do this because we need to get the baby back. Burns goes to Mallory with a proposition, and you just know that Sara isn't going to like whatever Burns has thought of. Sara is clearly avoiding John, so she ended up sleeping in Laszlo's office, and Laszlo brings her a cup of tea in the morning, and he's like, Sara, do you want to talk about it? And Sara is like, no, I don't want to talk about it, Laszlo. So she changes the subject back to the memory boxes, and she's like, Libby's mom isn't a good person. She lacked empathy for her own daughter, but why would she be such a person? And Laszlo is like, maybe she didn't want to have a child, and Sara is like, yeah, maybe, because women are pressured to give birth, and that's actually the purpose of women, and Sara doesn't like that. We get to see what Burns and Hearst have planned. So they bring Claire out. They have a photo shoot with Claire and her grandmother Mallory. So of course they're going to use a little child as bait. Gugunox decides to come back with the baby, and he wasn't able to give it to Burns for a cash reward. And Libby first attacks Gugunox because she's angry at him for taking the baby away. And Gugunox is like, Libby, can't you understand that I brought the baby back because he's our son? And that makes Libby very happy. And while she's loving the child, she notices the newspaper. And in the newspaper, the headline reads, Murderous Mad Woman's Child Reunited with Grandmother. So of course the bait worked. Sara comes back to the office, and this is where Bitsy tells Sara about the news. And of course Sara isn't happy about it. She calls John and she's like, John, why would Hearst do such a thing? I'm going to go and confront him. And John is like, you know what, Sara, take a breather. Let me talk to Hearst. You try to calm down. John goes to Hearst and he's like, Hearst, you will like literally publish any headline to sell newspapers, won't you? And Hearst is like, yeah, that's the name of the game. And then the conversation changes to Hearst telling John that he loves Violet and he doesn't want to see Violet hurt. And he's also okay with John's private affairs. He just doesn't want those private affairs to be made public. However, his affair with Sara, especially the relationship that these two share, that's quite public, and Hearst doesn't like that. Before walking out of his office, Hearst invites John to dinner tonight and he wants John to be there. Sara and Laszlo go to Mallory's apartment and Bird's already there and they go inside. So now all of them are waiting for Libby to appear and one of the lookouts tells that Libby has been noticed. She's like only 3 blocks away from the apartment, so everyone's waiting. And there's a knock on the door, and Mallory opens the door, and it turns out that Libby was quite smart. Instead of coming herself, she ended up sending another redhead in there who's wearing the coat that Libby was wearing, and she has a message. And apparently, Libby has bullets for all of them, so I guess she's going to try and kill them all. Libby decides to wait for everyone to come out of the apartment so that she can look at her daughter. And she looks at her daughter sitting in the carriage because Laszlo and Sara are going to take her with them. And Gugunox is like, Libby, we need to get out of here. Someone from the police is going to see us, and they do. And this is where Gugunox and Libby have to run away, and they separate. And Boyle decides to go after Libby. And yeah, he is able to find Libby, and he is like, get on the ground with your hands behind your back. And Libby asks Doyle about her daughter, and Doyle is like, yeah, your daughter is crazy, just like her mom. And the moment that Doyle decided to look away from Libby, I was like, you know what, she's going to hurt Doyle. And yeah, Libby ended up slitting Doyle's throat. And even though I wasn't a fan of Doyle, I wasn't expecting him to die, but yeah, Captain Doyle is dead, you all. Laszlo brings Claire to his office and he helps Claire meet with Karen. So yeah, Claire has some personal issues that hopefully Laszlo will be able to help her out with. And this is where Karen is like, what happened next, Laszlo? And Laszlo is like, you know what, Karen, I think a whole lot of death is going to happen because of how the events played out. Bitsy is walking Sara to her office, and Bitsy doesn't want Sara to be alone at night. And Bitsy is like, you know what, I'll postpone my dinner with Marcus so that I can be with you. And Sara is like, you know what, Bitsy, no, I appreciate the concern, but I'll be all right. And before Bitsy leaves, she tells Sara that if she loves John, she needs to tell him. Of course, John doesn't come to the dinner party, and Hearst and Violet are waiting for him. And yeah, I feel sorry for Violet. I really think that John should have a conversation with her and tell her the truth. And it turns out that John's calling Sara, and these two try to talk about their feelings again. And Sara is like, John, you know me, you know that I'm not very good when it comes to expressing my feelings. And Sarah's crying, and John is upset, and John decides to sit in the carriage and go to dinner with Violet. And while he's on his way, Sara decides to call John again, and apparently he sensed something. He tells the carriage to stop, but because John isn't in his house, he's unable to pick up Sara's call. So Sara is alone in the office. She hears someone walk in, and at first she's like, John, is that you? But no, it's Libby with a gun. And I'm like, this was very predictable for me. I really think that the writers should have handled the situation differently. But yeah, Libby's here, and she asks Sara about her daughter, and Sarah's like, you know what, Libby, yeah, your daughter has some psychological issues, but Laszlo will be able to help her with them. And she also presents an offer to Libby. She's like, Libby, if you let me go, I can help you meet your daughter, and you just have to give the Vanderbilt baby back. And Libby is like, no, that's not happening. You ruined everything, and I'm going to shoot you. Before Libby can shoot Sara, John comes in to save her. And yeah, I'm like, John, you can't even, yeah, like, he can't keep Libby down. But then again, John isn't a fighter and Libby is crazy, so it kind of made sense that she was able to overpower John. And yeah, Sara is able to get Libby's gun, and she is like, Libby, you need to let John go. And Libby is like, you know what, Sara, if you don't lower the gun, I'm going to slit John's throat, because Sara already knows that Libby ended up killing Doyle because Libby told her that. So yeah, Libby can easily kill grown-up men as well. So this is where the episode ends, and yeah, I'm looking forward to watching the finale. I will be doing a written review of episode 7 and 8 for the Geekiary. The link to the review will be down in the comment section below as soon as the review goes up. Let me know what you guys thought of this episode down in the comment section below. And yeah, I'm interested in seeing how this entire story will end in the final episode. And it was a bit predictable, especially at the end, because we knew that Libby was coming for Sara. It would have been better if it was Gugunox, but who kidnapped Sara or something. But yeah, it is what it is. Again, let me know what you guys thought, and until next time, stay happy, stay safe, stay blessed. See you guys later. Bye.